Hey there, this is Lost. Welcome back to the third series of my Komodo update. Now, I promise that this video will be regarding my Sage, and yes, I've converted my Warlock to Sage a couple days back. Now, first of all, just take a look at this flamboyant and very loud outfit. This is by far, I think, the loudest costume ever for a default costume on a class. I mean, look at Warlock is very nice, very uniform, I would say, but when it comes to Sorcerer, which is the Sage, it is very loud, very flamboyant, very colorful, especially when my hair is red. As far as the appearance goes, I've went through to test out the skill build, the gameplay of Sage for the past few days, as well as unlocking shadow equipment so that I can give you a greater insight of how Sage is. So this video will be regarding the PvE aspect of Sage. Now without further ado, let's jump right into it. Okay, here we are at the trading cost. Now instead of going through every single thing as of fresh, it's gonna be very long, very slow, and very boring. Now I've actually broken it down into 4 different portions. Namely, number 1, it will be regarding Bolt, which is the main skill that Sage will be using, and probably the only skill that Sage will be using in terms of dealing damage, and also skills that actually enhances the Bolt skill. Now number 2 will be the 4 new element skills that have been introduced to Sage on the 3rd job, and 3 will be the summons that Sage can use, and lastly the shadow equipment and how does it help the Sage to be more powerful and more efficient when it comes to both PvE, PvP, and also bossing. Okay, now portion 1, the Bolt skill. Now I would like to introduce firstly the 4 important passive that we gotta use together with Bolt. Okay, so I'm still using Firebolt because I am still a fire element user. Okay, nothing changes as compared to my Warlock in terms of equipment, enchantment, refine, anything. Nothing changes in terms of my equipment. Okay, so I'm still gonna use Firebolt. Now 4 important passive that the Sage will use. Number 1 is free cast, okay, which will actually allow us to move while casting the magic. Now as a Warlock, we all know that when we are channeling skills, once we move off, everything will be cancelled, but as of a Sage, we are able to move and cast at the same time. Okay, secondly, habitual casting. This will actually allow us to reduce slightly, alright, it's only 0.2 seconds on our bolt casting. Okay, so every time we releases 2 bolt, the subsequent bolt will be reduced by 0.2 seconds, which I'll demonstrate a bit later. Now the 3rd important passive is memorize. Now memorize is something like a mini version of sacrament. If you ever tried dealing damage with bishop casting offer blessing, which have the passive called sacrament that allows you to cast your skills without any channeling time, because it reduces 1 second of channeling time and 5 seconds on cast time. This memorize works similar, but it can only activate once. Okay, that's all we need to know. And double casting is basically having a 20% chance to cast 2 bolt together. That means instead of casting 1 level 8, you are casting 2 level 8 bolts together at the same time. Now let's take a look so that you can actually understand it better. Now I'm going to use bolt on a dummy, so I'm going to click once. We will first take a look at how habitual casting is. No, let's first take a look at how free cast is. As we are channeling, we can move off. Okay, so this is a good addition to the damage dealing when we are either wanting to evade bosses or cast MVP, mini, or even instance. This is a very good skill to add on for survivability, for mobility, but at the same time, if we want to do it more manually, we also can do that, which is as we are moving, we are just casting. Okay, now as I'm doing this example, you can see that some of the other passive are actually activated. So this is how free cast is. Simply means move and cast. Now second passive skill, habitual casting. As you can see just now, just went off, the buff of the habitual casting activated. So I'm going to do again, one cast, two casts, you can see the buff, and the next cast will actually reduce 0.2 seconds on the casting. Of course, this is very marginal, you don't really feel it, okay, but it helps sometimes. Okay, 0.2 is better than nothing. Now next passive that we're going to look at is memorize. Now I'm sure just now we have actually saw some of the passive being triggered. Memorize being casting the following bolt without any channel time. Let's see if we get it. Okay, there's a 20% chance. Now memorize, you saw that buff over here, the next bolt cast immediately, just like how Sacrament does to us. So this is magic. Now you can see the damage double. One bolt is 3.3, but when double casting trigger, it will become a 2 times level 8 bolt. So let's see again. This memorize, the next bolt increases, just cast. So that's magic. Twice you can see 2 bolt raining down from these 2 sides. Now one thing that you need to know is the passive triggering between habitual casting, memorize, and double casting. Only one of them can be triggered at any point of time. When memorize is being triggered, magic double casting will not be triggered. This is the bread and butter of the Sage with these 3 passive. Of course, including being able to move and cast, that's another advantage. Okay, now moving on to the skills that enhances the bolt skill. Okay, so this portion 1 is the most important, so I'm going to spend slightly more time explaining this. So let me just get this. Okay, cool. Now the next skill I want to talk about is bolt enhancement, which is this skill over here. So this bolt enhancement will change our bolt skill from a single target skill into a AoE with 3-meter radius. Okay, so this skill lasts for 50 seconds and requires one of these elemental stones. So as for me, I'm a fire build, I will need flame heart. Okay, so you go according to the bolt element that you use, and you will need the relevant elemental stones. Okay, so now let's take a look again. Maybe I will change a mob, it will be easier to see. Let's do this. Okay, now without any buff, again my bolt is a single target bolt. Okay, but once I buff it up with bolt enhancement, my bolt becomes a 3-meter AoE. Okay, so I will lure a little bit more and I cast. So this is quite fun if you are doing it manually, but usually you don't do it manually, but for the sake of this video, I'm going to show you how it works. So instead of just targeting one, you are targeting one still, but the 3-meter radius actually damages every single target within it as though of the first target. So every single unit will receive the same damage. This will actually help Sage to farm a lot more efficient, because the bolt skill is naturally high in damage, but right now it becomes an AoE although it's only 3-meter radius, but usually mobs will just come to you as they are moving towards you. They gather together, they just rain down the bolt skills, and you can kill them very efficiently. The next skill I want to talk about is elemental field. Elemental field is another, I would say, more like a support skill, because it creates an 8x8 field around us, around the character, lasts for 54 seconds while dealing the corresponding attribute damage, that means fire in this case, while in the case that you are receiving fire damage, it will reduce by 34% as long as you are within the field. Now I will just take a look here. This is where I will be, and when I cast elemental field, this is the radius of 8x8, which will keep on damaging. This will actually help to increase the DPS while farming, but one thing to take note is this skill will consume 1 yellow stone. Okay, at the same time it will also consume 1 elemental stone to cast, so this skill uses 2 stones for 1 cast. Is it really necessary? I'm not quite sure. Is it really powerful enough to really use it at a farming rate? That means every time you are casting it to farm, well, it really depends on you, and of course whether you have the resources to do it or not. I mean, if these 2 skills are in place together, you can pretty much farm very quickly, because there's so much more addition to the damage. Okay, why not I just show you here, it could be easier. I'll put it on auto, so casting elemental field and then enhance my bolt, and this is what happened. So the bolt already has a 3-meter radius AoE, and then now an 8x8 field damaging together. So this is how fast a sage can farm in one spot. Okay, I would like to emphasize this, in one spot, because sage has no skill to lure monsters unlike warlock has chain lightning. So sage is very efficient in spot farming in this case. Okay, so this is what happened. Now the skill will only be utilized again once the cooldown goes off, so you do not need to worry that the skill will just keep on spamming and you deplete your stones very quickly. Yet again, even so, it is still, in my opinion, very expensive to play sage because of this. Okay, now I will jump into the next portion, which is the 4 new element skills that sage has. Okay, so here we are looking at the 4 new elemental skills that the sage has, which is a 3rd job skill. So one is Warmer, Earthgrave, Diamond Dust, and Varietal Spear. So fire, earth, water, and wind. So what does each of them do? Is it really important to use in PvE? Well, very subjective after what I've tested, but I'm just gonna go through very quickly these 4 skills. So Warmer is a fire skill that deals a 4-meter radius around you, and then upon casting the skills, this skill will warm you up to 12 seconds at max level. Okay, and during this time you are immune. Okay, I say again, during this time you are immune to freeze and slow. Yeah, of course it does not apply to any debuff that is being applied on you by bosses. That means this skill is a very good skill for PvP, because 12 seconds of immunity from freeze and slow is gonna do a lot wonders. Okay, the cooldown is again 40 seconds, and then the fixed cooldown is 6 seconds. Now next skill is Earthgrave. Okay, Earth skill, again 4-meter area, dealing 12% damage and reducing the movement speed of the target within the range by 40 seconds for 3 seconds. 40 seconds for 3 seconds and dealing 20% damage. Now, is this gonna be a very fruitful skill to use? Well, really, in my opinion, not really. Because as a warlock myself, I have much better skills to slow you down and do more debuff than just movement speed. And not forgetting, the cooldown is very long. As of now, I can only use it at level 5 so that I can have 0 variable cooldown and cast it every 7 seconds. Okay, now next, Diamond Dust, a water skill that has a up to 30% chance to freeze target for 3 seconds. Now this is at max level 10, so 30% chance to freeze for 3 seconds is, well, very low. I mean, I could simply get Frost Diver, which is 100% chance, although I do not have Storm Gust. I mean, even if I have Storm Gust, the probability of freezing the target is so much better than Diamond Dust. Again, this skill deals only 300% of damage, so like, I don't know, it's kind of awkward skills to have for sorcerer to me, and I need to get it up to level 10 in order to achieve 30% chance. If I were to use it at what I can currently, which is only 20%, is neither here nor there, is very awkward. Now, Volunteer Spear is one skill that I think out of these 4 is one of the better, or if not the best one, in my own opinion, because not only it does damage, again it's just only 20%, but it also has a 30% chance to stun the target for 3 seconds. Now, although in the context of PvE or even PvP, stun may not be the very useful debuff to have, may not be, okay. I mean, for PvE, yes, but for PvP, because there's so many people right now having stun resistance, this skill is pretty much useless, okay. But why do I say that this skill is one of the better one within the 4 is because after I tested it out and looked through all the skills and of course unlocking shadow equipment, it kind of felt like it is still favored towards the wind build. Not because of this particular skill, but you know, as a whole gameplay, how the shadow equipment is being created and built into. And one more very crucial thing is the elemental stones that we need to use. Now, in order to get these stones, there's only very few options. Number 1, we buy off COC every single day 1,000 pieces. That costs us 800 over K Zenny every single day, and you will deplete it as you cast skill to farm either both enhancement, elemental field, or even your summons. So Sage consumes a lot of elemental stones, and in this Komodo update there are more water and wind and earth monsters as compared to fire. The highest level of fire mob that I can find right now is Brelite, and that's it. So either you buy off COC every single day to farm, or you farm wind monsters, which is easily found in Komodo lands maps, or you will have to buy off Whitesmith from the shop, or you have your own whitesmith to buy other people's deposit, as they sell off all these stones to you when they farm. Right, so these are the few options, but when it comes to fire, it's very hard to get. So as a fire build playing Sage, it is kind of painful. Using Sage with fire build, you have to be very conservative and tactical in order to play it well. So this is something additional on top of why I say playing wind is kind of having a slight advantage over fire. Now this is the end for the portion 2. We'll jump into the portion 3, which is the summons. Okay, portion 3. Now as a Sage, we don't just deal high bulk damage and also having the mini AoE to be more efficient in farming, but we also have a very good companion with us to battle together or to protect us. Now that is the Spirit Summon. Now as a Sage, since we are also a Magician of Whiz, we can play 4 elements. Same thing here, the Summon Spirits comes in 4 different elements, and of course, like I said in the previous portion, summoning spirits will require the elemental stones again. Okay, but the good thing is these spirits can stay long enough so that it doesn't really deplete too fast of the elemental stones. Okay, so a couple of things that the spirit can do for us. Number 1, they can fight, or number 2, they can protect the sorcerer. So when we summon the spirit out, we will get like an additional life, or in this case a shield with the value of our magic attack times 2000%. Okay, so at any one point of time we can only summon 1 spirit. So as a fire player, I will be summoning a fire spirit, and then the other elements has their own individual spirits as well. So now let me show you my fire spirit and what does the shield look like. Okay, so this is my fire spirit, and you see this red bar on top of my actual health bar. This is the shield that we have. This shield's value is my magic attack, which is currently at 27,000 times 2000%. So this is the shield that I will have as I receive damage from monsters. This shield will be depleted as I receive damage. Okay, once this bar is gone, Spirit Summon is gone as well. So it's like our spirit is tanking for us. Okay, so once this is gone, we will be left with our own HP to tank for us. Once both bar are gone, we are dead. Okay, now how do we prolong the shield? Now this is other skills that I will be explaining. Spirit recovery, this is one. This skill is typically for recovering the shield. Okay, this is good. Now you can see that my shield is down to probably left one third. Okay, now I will heal it up. So I'm using my HP to heal the bar. For 4 seconds, I will consume 5% of my HP and restore the HP of the spirit, which is the shield. Okay, so this actually allows us to prolong the shield so that our spirits can be on the field longer, because we really need to fully utilize the time of our spirit summon, because it can last for 150 seconds, and if the shield dies off too fast, we will have to wait for the cooldown to finish before we can summon again. Now the cooldown can be very long. Why do I want my spirit to last longer? It's because of this. Spirit Sympathy. Now as you know that as a Warlock we have the Vortex to help us increase our elemental damage. For Sage we have it too, but it's tied to Spirit. So when the Spirit is in the field, it will help us to increase the corresponding elemental enhancement by 2% up to 10 stacks. So we can get an additional 20% for me it will be fire, for you it can be any other elements. So additional 20% of fire element enhancement, and also increases our movement speed by 2. Okay, so once Spirit is gone, this will be gone as well. That means we got no shield, we are down in damage, we are also down in movement speed. Now the next skill I want to talk about is this elemental action. Now each of the various spirits will have their own, I would say, like a signature move, okay, like an ultimate move also. Okay, so for fire will be Meteor Storm. For the earth will be Gravitational Field. For the water is Storm Gust, and of course for the wind will be Lord of Vermilion. So at any point of time, if let's say we are dealing damage, the spirit will help us to fight as well in this manner. Okay, it will deal normal hit. You also can deal the relevant bulk damage, and of course it can deal the signature move. Okay, so this is pretty cool. So next skill I will talk about is Spirit Insignia. Now this skill allows us to have our own HP recovery per second, and at the same time enemy of the counter attribute will lose HP per second. Okay, so this is, now I need to summon again, and then Insignia. So now it heals me. Okay, every second it heals me. So this is something pretty cool to have as we are fighting, because this will help us to stay alive more, because it's constantly healing us as long as the skill is activated. Alright, so I've covered the more important skills when it comes to the spirit. Now for the what I feel is the least important skill in the spirit side would be the speed control. This is simply a toggle skill for you to toggle between on and off. On means your spirit will be in the attacking mode. Off, that means it's defending. You will not do anything. So this skill is simply for that purpose. Okay, and of course when the spirit is in a defense mode, it will recover the shield, but once they are doing that, you will be bearing the damage. Okay, so instead of using spirit recovery to deplete our own HP to heal the shield, you can choose to toggle it off and take the damage instead while your spirit is recovering on its own. But to me, I would rather heal, it's much more faster. Okay, and then the next skill is Spirit Possession. Now as I said just now, you will want your spirit to be on the field as long as possible because of the benefits that I've said: elemental enhancement, the attacking, and then the shield. But if you were to choose to sacrifice the spirit, yes, you can also. It will become a possession, or the fire spirit to be sacrificed. It gives me movement speed and expand the range of advanced books melee attack. So this additional buff for possession doesn't do me any good. This is to me by far the least important skill when it comes to the spirit. Now the last skill that I'm going to cover over here is Elemental Shield. Now this is a skill that I will probably use in a critical situation. okay, because this allows me to have a shield for each party member, and all of us will be immune to upcoming melee and range physical attack up to 20 times, and this 20 counter is shared among all members. So this is something that I use in instance. Okay, other than that, I don't really use it. Without further ado, let's go into portion 4, shadow equipment. Okay, we are now at the final portion, shadow equipment. Now I want to unlock this shadow equipment before I do this review, is because it is only then I am able to see kind of like a true form of how a sage will be, because shadow equipment does give additional benefits, boost of damage, and various effect when it comes to the selected skills. Okay, I am currently at level 4. This is the best that I can go. Okay, I'm hoping to go up to level 5, but sadly level 3 failed me 3 times. Well, this is gonna be a very painful journey, but nonetheless, I also managed to max out everything in inscription and pioneer. Okay, now let's take a look at the various skills. Okay, elemental with 1. Now this skill increases our attribute resistance. Okay, corresponding again, that means since I'm fire build, I will be increasing fire resistance, but at the same time I can reduce my cast time of 0.14 seconds. Now in portion 1, I talk about habitual casting, which allows my third casting bolt to be reduced by 0.2 seconds. Now together with this, if I were to choose this, I will have another 0.14, so total up 0.34 seconds taken off from my bolt. But this skill relies on elemental field. That means when I'm standing within elemental field, I will get this effect. Okay, so for elemental width 2, there's more resistance from 9 to 15, and then the cast time remains, so the cast time is the same, 0.14 to 0.18. Same thing over here. So let's say I will go to put this, and I'm show you how it looks like. Again, this is very marginal, so you may not feel it, but when these two are added together, okay, you can probably see that the channeling of my firebolt can be seen faster, 0.34 seconds off of 1 second channeling time. That's a good 30% reduced. Okay, now next to the other skill, elemental charge 1. Now this skill will increase our bolt damage by 3% for 8 seconds and can stack up to 3 times, so at level 1 is a good 9%. And once I get it to SE5, I will have additional resistance, and I can stack up to 5%, so this is 15%. Now let me equip this. Okay, we always have to check because the image are all the same, so make sure it's charge 1, and now I will just do bolt. Okay, and we will see a counter appear up here, and this will always refresh 8 seconds as long as we are casting bolt skill. So 3 stacks, that's a 9% increment of damage. Now this skill will be a good usage when it comes to boss fight. Depends on the situation and what do you like. Do you want, or do you like more damage versus faster casting speed. Okay, so this is the two things that you need to think of if you are playing a Sage. Okay, now next we have Magic Rod. Now this skill is more for the PvP, so I will explain this skill in the next video. Okay, so we have Spellbreaker. This is yes, this is like a PvP skill, but I do use it in PvE because Komodo mobs, there are many mobs that cast skill like Silent Stance, or they also cast their own elemental skill. So when you are dealing in multiple numbers of them, and if they were to cast all their skills at you, it's going to be very painful. So this skill comes in pretty handy in that kind of situation whereby they are silenced and they're just going to deal a normal attack, which is painful enough, and then you can survive better and you can just deal more damage. So this is what I have. Again, these two skills are for wind and water. So this is for normal attack, this is for water, which I don't use at all. So this, for this second slot, I'll just pretty much focus on these two skills. Okay, now jumps to the next one. This is interesting. Again, habitual casting, which we know that it will help us to reduce the casting time by 0.2%. Now it will help us to increase the bolt damage by 16%. So let's take a look over here. Okay, maybe I'll just do this first. One bolt is 1.98 million. Okay, that is one single bolt. Now let's take a look at this. Let's run through again. 2 stacks, 3 stacks. So now our damage for one bolt is 2.29. Okay, when habitual casting is triggered, our bolt damage will increase to 2.29 million. So do you think this is a good addition? Is it something good to have, or bolt enhancement? Now we know that bolt enhancement allow our bolt to become a mini AoE with a 3-meter radius, right? But on top of that, when we are able to kill the target with the bolt and with bolt enhancement in place, a vortex will be generated under the killed target, dealing 16% damage of fire to all targets within the area, 2 seconds for every 2 seconds for 6 seconds, and a maximum of 1 vortex will be generated. So let's see what happens. So now I'm gonna buff bolt enhancement and then cast my bolt. Now you can see this vortex is being generated upon a killed target, which also deal damage over time damages. So I personally find this very nice to have when I'm farming, because as I'm channeling that 1 second, I have a damage counter that is already in place to deal the initial starting damage before I cast my bolt. So this actually helped me to fasten my farming speed. So these are the two skills that validation has for us. Now the third skill is again for Aqua. This is for PvP usage to have ice armor. That means you need to use the water element stones, but as of now I don't think I will be using that. I'm not sure, but once I'm at SE5 I'll probably do a test again. SE6 Spirit Possession, this is more for the wind element, so reduces range damage taken. For water element is increasing of our PvP damage reduction. This is something personally I would love to try and see how effective it is. Next, contract. We have again another PvP skill. It seems like Siege can be a very good PvP class, which I've yet to test, right? Dispel, it will remove one buff from target, and every buff is removed, it will reduce the target magic damage reduction for 5 seconds, which is pretty nice. That means we can deal more damage, or any other magic class in the party can deal more damage. Now, elemental knowledge, which increase our damage dealt to fire monsters and water monsters by 18%. This is what I would choose for now, because as a fire build, naturally I deal less damage on fire and water monsters, so this will help me to fill out that gap that I have on a natural state. Okay, then again, this is for PvP, increase magic damage bonus for my drain, and then this skill is for the wind and the water, so increase the relevant elemental enhancement by 15% and increasing, at the same time having resistance to water and fire. Okay, and then for soul is regarding the 4 new elementals skill that the Siege has. Now, why do I say just now playing wind has more advantage than fire? Is because of this skill, but of course you need to be SE8 in order to achieve this. The Varieteer Spear damage is increased by 30% for every target within the range, and the cooldown is restored by 1.5 seconds for every target hits. So if, let's say, there is 5 targets in the range, okay, let's say 1.5 seconds times 5, that's 7.5 seconds of cooldown being restored. It means there's a cooldown reduction of 7.5 seconds. Now, this skill has a fixed cooldown of just 7 seconds. So what if you already have a variable cooldown reduction of 40 seconds and then you have SE8? I mean, this is pretty far-fetched. Not all of us gonna have SE8, and I do not know how long will it take us to get to SE8, but hypothetically, just imagine you have SE8 and you are a wind player, and then you have that skill in your shadow equipment, hitting 5 targets. It will mean that this skill can be spammed non-stop. Even if it's just 4 targets, it's a 6 seconds reduction. Every 1 second you can spam this skill. Okay, 5 targets means you can just keep on spamming. So this is pretty sick if you're a wind player. Before I end off this video, let me just show you how is it like to be farming fully with all the skills, all the relevant skills, important skills in place as a Siege. So be right back. So now this is my PvE skill setup. Okay, of course, maybe I'll just very quickly run through what are the skills that I have. Number 1, bolt. Okay, definitely on the mage class. Fireball to unlock firewall, and then SP increase recovery. That's all. Let's go to Sage. Okay, for staff build, we only need to focus on the middle and the last column. Okay, for the first column, 99% is all for book style. Okay, why do I say 99%? You will find out a little bit later. So I have free cast, okay, which I explained in portion 1. Habitual casting radius, which increase 2 meters for both skills. Okay, these skills here are for PvP, which I'm not going to go through here. I have bolt enhancement max, okay, which is the mini AoE, elemental field, the 8x8 field range, okay, and then I have elemental mark and element bonus. Now these two skills are for normal attack, which means for the book, but why do I have it? Now thanks to one of my guildmate who tested out with other Sage in the guild, this is something I kind of overlooked as I was building my skills, which is spiderweb. This skill immobilizes the target for 3 seconds, and when the target is being immobilized, it will increase the damage taken by fire attribute attacks by 30%. Okay, so this is a very good MVP and boss fight skill, because although the boss, I do not know whether this is a bug, I hope not, okay, I hope not. When this skill is being cast on the boss, of course they don't immobilize, but the buff of additional 30% increase in fire damage is applied. So this is something very nice, and it's only 5 skill points, so I have to spend 15 skill points to get this. Other than that, I have nothing on the first column. The rest are all for the book style. Okay, now on the professor, which is the second job for Sage, things that I did not cover, which is health conversion and SP swap. Now health conversion, very simple. It's just converting our SP into HP. So this is like another mini heal for us. If pot is not available, this can be something that can help us to survive better. But for me, I don't use it. Soul change, which is a SP swap, you can target both ally and enemy. Okay, so this is more of a PvP skill again. I will explain this in my PvP video. Now on the third column, memorize double casting, I already explained in the first portion of this video, so I don't need to go through, just max it out. All the passive max. Okay, monster knowledge, this will allow us to do 10% more damage to all 4 elements monster. Simple, so just max it. Extended field, this is for elemental field. That means when ourselves or our party member leave the elemental field, the buff effect will follow for another 10 seconds. Simple as that. Now next is elemental knowledge. Simply increase 5% more damage on all these 4 elements. So again, just have it at max. My drain, my breaker, PvP skills. Last job, these are the spirit skills. I don't use any of these 4 skills for PvE. For spirits, I have summons, elemental action, shield, recovery, insignia, and spirit sympathy max. Spirit control and spirit possession, I don't use it at all. Okay, so this is my Sage PvE skill build, and this is how I line it up for my PvE. So this build allows me to farm mob, do instance, and hunt bosses. Okay, 3 in 1. Now if I were to farm mob, okay, I will be using it like this, or most of the time I don't use elemental field, and my shadow equipment setup will be more towards like this. Yep. Okay, so this is how my setup will be. Okay, so if let's say to go on farming, this is what happened. Then my spirits up, I have my bolt enhancement to do AoE, and then I have all my passive skills to be triggered. Okay, and my spirit just on auto, you can fight. And if let's say I'm being generous, I have tons of stones to expend. I will add on elemental field, which will look something like this. Okay, for Maya, for boss fight, I will make a little bit change. I will uncheck enhancement because boss don't die immediately, and having AoE is not really effective. It will just consume my flame heart. I'll have my spider web up, and then my setup for shadow equipment will be like this. I'll change it to more damage instead of vortex because I don't use elemental field as well. So for boss fight, it will be like this. Okay, I have my insignia on just to keep me constantly healed. My spirit will be there to fight and cast his signature move while I'm just dishing out bolt after bolt after bolt. So this is how a sage fight the boss. Some people will cast elemental field on mobs around the map because that will actually help to stack up the final damage bonus if you have, which I have. Sometimes I do that, sometimes I don't, depending on the situation. Now this is the end of my Sage video for PvE. So how do you like it? Do you think Sage is a worthwhile class to play? Is it going to be something that you are looking forward to? If you have not decided and you're sitting on the fence to change a warlock to Sage or any other class to Sage, maybe some of you are playing priest, a book priest, changing it to a book Sage. Now, while that I have no experience, but so what do you think? Is fire better or wind better still? Let me know in the comment section below, and with that I'll see you in the next video for the PvP skill build.